Down to Patrick Christie's tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Well, 500 more crossed the English Channel today, let alone legally how many have come today. We've absolutely no idea, which has led to a demand for an emergency census in the country to find out what the true population is. We'll debate whether that is a good idea. The Met and Manchester Police are now going to get tough, at last some might say, on Palestinian marches, what they can chant and what they can say. But is it too little, too late? And frankly, is it actually even enforceable? We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about the fact that 500 foreign-born migrants go onto the benefit system every single day. Plus, Grangemouth is going to be rescued. Government policy has basically closed it down, but now we're going to subsidise it to keep it open. Is our industrial strategy right in this country? All of that and much more after the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you, Nigel. Good evening to you. 7 o'clock here in the GB Newsroom. Our headlines. Police in London and Manchester say protesters chanting "globalise the Intifada," an Arabic word for uprising, will now face arrest as officers adopt a tougher approach following the terror attack at a Jewish gathering in Sydney. They say the context has changed, warning the phrase will be treated more robustly under public order laws. Jewish groups have welcomed the move, but say they've been calling for stronger action for more than 2 years since the October the 7th attacks in 2023. Police are vowing to act decisively against intimidation while insisting lawful protest will still be protected.
The words and chants used, especially in protests, matter, and they have real-world consequences. We have consistently been advised by CPS that many of the phrases causing concern to Jewish communities don't meet prosecution thresholds. However, now, in the escalating threat context, we will recalibrate our operational actions to be more assertive.
Patients have been warned to expect major disruption as a result of a 5-day strike by resident doctors in England, which began earlier. The issue was discussed at Prime Minister's Questions, where Sir Keir Starmer described the walkout as dangerous and utterly irresponsible and blamed the Conservatives for leaving the NHS on its knees. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch accused the government of another broken promise.
This morning, they've gone back on strike for the third time, in the middle of winter, in the middle of the worst flu crisis in years. Mr. Speaker, this shouldn't be allowed. We already ban strikes by the police and the army. Why doesn't he put patients first, show some backbone, and ban doctors' strikes?
Sir Keir Starmer's warned Roman Abramovich the clock is ticking for him to release the proceeds from the sale of Chelsea FC to support Ukraine. The Prime Minister says the government has now issued a licence allowing the frozen funds to be transferred and is prepared to take the oligarch to court if he doesn't honour his pledge. Mr Abramovich promised the money would go to Ukrainian victims, but has yet to do so. The UK is set to rejoin the Erasmus Student Exchange Scheme from 2027, 6 years after ending its participation because of Brexit. It will give students in Britain the opportunity to study, train or volunteer in the EU as part of their degree courses without paying extra fees, and it will offer the same in reverse to Europeans. Downing Street's described the £570 million cost as a good deal, insisting Britain secured a 30% reduction in fees, and they say most of that money will flow back to UK students and institutions. Nick Reiner's appeared in court charged with the murders of his parents, the film director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. The 32-year-old faces 2 counts of first-degree murder, with prosecutors alleging he used a knife to carry out the attack. LA's district attorney says his office has not yet decided whether to seek the death penalty. Hollywood figures close to the couple, including Billy Crystal and Larry David, have paid tribute, calling Rob and Michelle a special force together, describing them as dynamic, unselfish and inspiring. Their son is scheduled to appear again before court on the 7th of January. And the Celtic chairman, Peter Lowell, is to step down from the club's board after what he's described as intolerable abuse and threats. Fans have been voicing their displeasure following the club's early exit from the Champions League, a disappointing summer transfer window and their current league campaign. New manager Wilfried Nancy has lost his first 3 games in charge after he succeeded Brendan Rodgers, including Sunday's Premier Sports Cup final against St Mirren. Lowell spent 18 years at the club as chief executive from 2003 and the last 3 as chairman. Those are your headlines. I'll be back with more at 8.
I can't tell you the number of people that have said to me in the course of the last couple of years, we don't recognise our town, we don't recognise our village. We go to the shops and we're surrounded by people speaking foreign languages. And Nigel, why has it happened so quickly? Well, it's true to say that in the last 3 years alone, the population of some of the towns in our country has risen by 10% or perhaps even more. And just today, 500 more crossed the English Channel, which was a very narrow window of just 12 hours in between strong winds. And if you have a look, at the Starmer, we're going to smash the gangs, well, you'll see that actually this year is over 40,000 people that have come to the country. Not quite as high as it was just a couple of years back in 2022, but a few more calm days between now and the new year, and we may well get close to that total. What's interesting, though, is that's the figure for illegals, but that's only about a third, 35, 40% of the overall number of people we believe are coming in illegally. And then, of course, we've got legal net migration, which during the Boris Johnson period went through the roof. And just think about these numbers. From the late 1940s until about the year 2000, net migration into Britain ran at about 30 to 35,000 a year. Some years, it was even a negative. Under Blair, we go up to 250,000. But get the Tories in, and then the numbers really start to move. And look at the Boris wave, net migration of 1 million in 2023 alone. But folks, these are only guesstimates. There are many think that the true numbers that are in Britain, legally and illegally, are considerably higher than any of those graphs that I've just shown you. And that's led to policy exchange. And this is a coming together of Nadhim Zahawi, former Conservative Chancellor, and Lord Maurice Glasman of Labour, a friend of this programme. And they've come together and said, we need to have an emergency census. Let's take 10 areas of the UK, do a full census. Let's estimate really how big the population is, what that means for impacts on the health service, what that actually means for the number of homes we have to build, and indeed, what it means perhaps for deporting people who've come into Britain illegally. Maurice Glasman added these comments backing up the idea of having this census. In the interest of protecting critical infrastructure and identifying risks of civil unrest, the country needs up-to-date population data which provides vital, on-the-ground insights. If we are truly serious about integration as a society, fresh information is needed on forms of neighbourhood segregation and levels of English language proficiency in local communities. I strongly encourage the Labour government to take note of the social justifications for an emergency 2026 census in England. Well, let me ask you, is this census necessary? Tweet #Farage on GBNews or email farage@gbnews.com. And folks, for what it's worth, I think it's absolutely vital that we do this. How the hell can we plan any sense of what infrastructure needs to be without having a better, more accurate reflection of the numbers? And I'm guessing one of the ways we can do it actually is by looking at what supermarkets sell. You think about the big 3 or 4 supermarkets, very easy to work out just how many people are living in their areas. I'm joined tonight on the panel by Lord John Cryer, former chairman of the Parliamentary Labour Party, and Kwasi Kwarteng, former MP and Chancellor of the Exchequer. This one, John, it's cross-party in a sense. We've got Morris, Glassman, Nadeem Zahawi. And I mean, I'm not making it up. People saying to me, Colchester and Essex, we barely recognise it from a couple of years ago. Something very big's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it, when you get that rapidity of change, because I've seen it in the past. I mean, I've seen it under governments of both stripes.
Yes.
If you're asking what I think of Morris's suggestion, I'll talk a fair bit to Morris. I haven't seen him for a few days, so I haven't heard that. But I think it's fair enough. I can see his point. I can see his argument. I suspect that Morris probably has a bit more sway with the Home Secretary than I have, so I suspect he'll be going to see Savannah and saying, let's have a census.
He comes on this show and sings her praises, you know.
He does it all the time. It's not just on this show. It's constant. Yeah, it's true.
Well, Kwasi, I mean, you know, you were there during the Boris wave.
That's right. I was in Cabinet at the time. But in terms of the census, you know, I always like to bring things to history. I mean, we've had a census every 10 years for more than 200 years.
Yes.
And now we've got the technology, and because of this rapidity of transformation, it's blindingly obvious and commonsensical to have an intermediate census between 2021, when it was last done, and we'll have to wait till 2031 for the next census.
Yeah.
So I think it makes perfect sense.
And the idea is just in 10 key areas.
Yeah, you do it's like a form of sampling.
Big sample.
Yes, you do a big sample and then you extrapolate what the actual population is, because the critically important thing is in government you have to obviously come up with policies, and if you don't know actually how many people there are, how on earth can you have constructive, serious policy making when you don't even know what you're dealing with?
Do you suspect, Kwasi, that the numbers really are much, much higher than I
think they're higher. I mean, I remember as an MP, people would come to my surgery, and I'm sure John had the same experience. You probably have it now. People coming in, and I remember a gentleman from Sri Lanka coming in and saying he wanted a British passport. And I said, well, where's your old passport? The Sri Lankan passport. I said, oh, I never had one. I said, how on earth did you get here? And he was trafficked, essentially, to Britain. He ended up living in my constituency. Good guy. But, of course, without a passport, he never travelled. So he was here for 15 years, essentially living in the shadows, doing odd jobs. And then finally, when he wanted to see his mother, I think it was, obviously he needed a passport to travel there. And he came to see me because he hadn't had a passport, ever.
And what do you do in a situation like that, Kwasi? Because, I mean, you know, the guy's here illegally.
That's right.
He claims he was trafficked.
That's right. He's been here 15 years doing odd jobs in the community, petrol stations, restaurants, that sort of thing. And it's very difficult as an MP when you deal with that.
I had cases.
You would have done.
I mean, Leighton and Wanstead is one of the most mixed places, not just in Britain, but on the face of the planet. So you name a community, I've probably had it in Leighton and Wanstead. And I had people who'd been... I mean, I can remember some quite tragic cases. There were some people who I managed to help, but you really need an immigration lawyer, and you need a decent immigration lawyer, because there are some real charlatans out there who sell themselves as immigration lawyers, and they say to vulnerable people, give me your money and I'll sort it out. Then somebody like me or Kwasi goes to the Home Office. There's no application with the Home Office. They've just taken the money and run. Actually, that's one thing that I know this is a side issue, but we ought to have proper regulation of immigration advice. It's something we've never done.
But the point about, I mean, so I met this gentleman probably 10 years ago, and the point that reinforced to me was that we don't have a clue who's here.
No.
I was just one MP out of 650.
Which justifies the demand.
For a it seems eminently sensible. And those years when we had, we used to have them we do have them every 10 years.
Yeah.
But it seems to me...
we rely with the census on the old-fashioned, something through the letterbox or online, and people responding to it. And the evidence is, if there's large numbers of people here illegally, they will not respond.
Of course they won't.
So we have to use modern. I suggested supermarket sales.
Sure.
But there are all sorts of measures on street.
You're right. I mean,
numbers,
look, the first census
cars.
was in 1801, okay? Yeah. And they had the technology they had then. We have our technology, and there are lots of ways. We've got pollsters who do these very fancy MRP polls.
Yeah.
We know about statistics. We know about sampling. And I think the suggestion you made, looking at supermarkets, looking at other data, you can very quickly extrapolate with a high degree of accuracy what the actual population is. Because if you just give people forms with a pen and paper, they're not going to fill it in.
No. I mean, John made the point that both governments have been guilty of letting in too many people. Do you feel ever so slightly ashamed of what happened in those years?
I think it was a great shame. what happened under the Conservatives. I don't feel personally responsible. I feel personally responsible for a lot of things, but that wasn't my beat, as it were. But I also feel, and this is a wider, more serious question, actually, I think the Home Office has some questions in terms of how they regulated this, because I had the feeling that within the Home Office, and certainly within the Treasury a little bit, there were people who were quite happy.
And because the more people in the country...
Yeah, boost GDP,
the GDP
all of that sort of
goes
stuff.
up.
And then the OBR's happy. And I think, this whole question isn't just about Labour or Conservative, it's about the state, it's about the
It's also, I mean, Morris mentioned integration, fears of civil disorder. The integration point matters a lot.
Yeah, it does matter a lot. I mean, you can achieve integration, but if you get very, very high concentrations of people who can't speak English, so they can't relate to the outside world, then it's more a problem for them actually than it is for anybody else. I was going to say, and this has shifted between the two big parties over the last 50 years. I've never understood why trade unionists like me would believe in freedom of movement, because actually it's freedom should be exploited to the nth degree, which is exactly what happened.
And it kept wages low. I mean, we don't need to rehearse the whole Brexit debate, but that was a big part of.
I've never understood it either. I've never understood it either. Well, we'll move on from that, because it seems in the wake of the horrors of Bondi Beach, let alone what happened in Manchester just a couple of months ago, that finally the police are going to start policing Palestinian protests in a very different way with a big crackdown. Is it too little too late? Even bigger question, is it actually enforceable to stop crowds marching through British cities from shouting certain slogans?
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
couple of your reactions to do we need an emergency census? Julia says, I totally agree that we need to now know how many people are actually in the country, but also how could a census ensure that illegal immigrants will complete the questions even if you can find them and ask them to complete it? Julia, they won't, which is why I'm suggesting using other methods like supermarket sales, which very accurately can tell how many people live in an area. And Graham says, a census would be a waste of time, as too many migrants just wouldn't bother with it. I'm guessing most of the younger generation wouldn't bother either. Folks, we can also measure the number of people going in and out of bus stops, etc. There are ways now with modern tech, I promise you, that we can do this. Anyway, it started pretty much in the immediate aftermath of the events of the 7th of October and the massacre that took place in Israel. And before you knew it, there were marches, pro-Palestinian marches, some called them hate marches, happening on our streets. Chants in London, Birmingham and elsewhere, with large crowds from the river to the sea and globalise the Intifada. And somehow we allowed march after march after march to continue. It seemed week after week after week. But now, in the wake of what happened on Bondi Beach and what happened in Manchester, now the police are going to change their approach. Here was Sir Mark Rowley, Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, earlier on today.
We've pushed the law to its limits over the last couple of years. Every contentious phrase, every contentious act, we push to CPS to seek advice and charge when they authorise it. What we're talking about today is going further. We're going to make more arrests on some of the contentious phrases, and we're going to encourage CPS to look harder at prosecuting those cases.
And in fact, this came as part of a joint statement with the Chief Constable of Greater Manchester Police as well. And let's just read something from their joint statement. We know communities are concerned about placards and chants such as globalise the Intifada, and those using it at a future protest or in a targeted way can expect the Met and Greater Manchester Police to take action. Violent acts have taken place. The context has changed. Words have meaning and consequence. We will act decisively and make arrests. Well, I'm joined in the studio by Sir Michael Ellis, former Conservative Attorney General, and my panel from the earlier segment. Michael Ellis, a lot of people watching this and listening to this will be saying we should have done this right at the very start.
Nigel, it's just woeful. It's absolutely woeful. The police, frankly, and the Crown Prosecution Service have been negligent, in my view, about the Jewish community and protecting the Jewish community in this country. And now they've come to the dinosaur-slow realisation that something needs to be done. At this point, frankly, I don't accept what Sir Mark Rowley is saying. I think they're probably feeling under pressure for political reasons. They're feeling under pressure for legal reasons. Now they're choosing to do something that they should have done 2 years ago. Meanwhile, we've had 2 years of the Jewish community feeling violently threatened and at risk. A tiny part of our society, 0.2% of the population.
But we do believe in free speech, Sir Michael.
Of course we believe in free speech, but there's never been carte blanche. There's never been an absolutely open... You cannot, as you and I have said in the past, you've never been allowed to go into a crowded theatre and have the free speech of shouting fire when there isn't one. We've always placed some limits on free speech.
Yeah.
And when you are calling for, as now is being accepted, when you call for globalising an intifada, what you're actually doing there, it's difficult to say anything other than you're calling for violence against Jewish people worldwide.
Well, I agree with you, but what happens if, say, this... I mean, by the way, I still think we should have allowed far fewer of these marches than we have. But what happens this Saturday in Birmingham if there's a big march and there are 50,000 people chanting globalise the Intifada? What the hell do the police do?
Well, the reality of the matter is that if they had acted properly, if they'd policed this matter properly... Look, I was a prosecutor...
But we are where we are.
We are where we are, but I don't accept the excuses. I prosecuted cases 30 years ago, 25 years ago. I actually prosecuted offences under the Public Order Act. I was able to prosecute cases which, frankly, had a lot less evidence than I've seen in other cases which have not been prosecuted. But it hasn't been called out. Part of the problem is that people haven't been prepared, including politicians, with the exception of Kemi Badenoch, have not called out this jihadism that we've got in society, in Western society. And frankly, the UK isn't the only country. Canada has a problem, as we've seen. Australia has a problem. And not enough has been done to recognise this issue. And of course we have free speech, of course we do, but it doesn't include the right to threaten and intimidate others. It never has done, and I'm afraid the police have lost the confidence of a lot of people in this country.
I mean, John, Michael rightly talks about the Jewish community and the lack of protections that have been offered to them, but there's another element to this, that people see, well, they can say, that community can say offensive things and get away with it, yet, you know, if you or I were to stand up in the street and start saying things that were offensive to, say, their religion, we'd find ourselves arrested and probably put in prison. This feeling that we're living in a two-tier country.
Yeah, I think there's something in that. Over the past, I would say, about probably 15 years, anti-Semitism's crept in a cancerous way into the fabric of British society. And, you know, I grew up thinking anti-Semitism had been dealt with in 1945. That was, just shows how wrong you can be. And the time when I realised that things were shifting was about 12, 13 years ago, and I went into a school. I won't say which one, but a boy made an anti-Semitic comment, actually about Ed Miliband. And that was like a kick in the face, but that was the first time, and then the rest, you know, is history. When we talk about, 50,000 people march, what do you do? The organisers of the march will have applied for a licence to have that.
So they're the ones who organise.
Well, yeah, I think so. You remember, you sort of touched on this. When people were being murdered in southern Israel on the 7th of October 2023, on that day, there was an application to the Metropolitan Police to have a march. 2 days later, so hours after it finished, just hours, there was a demonstration outside the Israeli embassy.
And it was
why would you do that unless you're inciting racial hatred?
It was vile, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think...
Kwasi, have the police finally got this right? Or do you share Sir Michael's scepticism that actually these are just statements being made and not much will change?
It's not a coincidence. This appalling crime in Australia has really galvanised action from the police. But what Michael was saying is actually right. I mean, why didn't they do this 2 years ago? You know, why did it take 15 people to be murdered in Australia for them to do anything? And as you say, I suspect there's a strong political pressure on them that we can't see, that will be behind closed doors, that's actually galvanising the police, because it doesn't make sense otherwise for them suddenly to say, actually, we're going to police it properly. I mean, essentially, that's what he said.
Michael, these two big police chiefs are going to be tested pretty quickly, aren't they?
They are going to be tested pretty quickly. We as a society and our politicians have to call out this radical Islamist extremism where we see it. And we do require Western leaders to stick up for Western values when they are in jeopardy. And there needs to be some moral responsibility here, as well as legal responsibility. Legislation, I think, may well be necessary to help support this. One of the things I'm calling for, Nigel, is legislation, or certainly the setting up of a dedicated anti-Semitism unit within the Crown Prosecution Service to fight anti-Semitism and to prosecute it and to make sure it is properly prosecuted, because I don't think they've been doing the right job either.
Final thought I put to John. You know, my feeling that it's difficult not to feel we're living in a two-tier society.
Yes.
When some groups can say some things and others can't. Others can make offensive statements, remove them 2 or 3 hours later from their Twitter feed and still go to prison. Are we living in two-tier Britain?
Yes, I'm afraid. I think that there are examples, and I hate to say that, because I've spent my entire life in the legal circles. But the reality is, I think we do have some two-tier policing here, and we've seen several examples of that, and I think we need to address that very urgently.
These two police chiefs made their statement today. They're telling us they're going to redress the balance.
Well,
no more two-tier.
I hope so. Good luck. Let's see if they do it.
Very sceptical, Ellis, there. In a moment, we'll talk about welfare. I think this figure's incredible. 500 foreign-born nationals, migrants, are going on to benefits in Britain every single day. Think about that.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, are you heading away for some sunshine? Well, it's quite wet actually across parts of Spain, Italy and France, as well as the Canary Islands. We've got some very unsettled weather, a risk of showers for Tenerife through Thursday and a risk of outbreaks of heavy rain and thunderstorms spread across Spain, Italy and France through Thursday. It does look a little bit drier to end the week, and across eastern areas of the Mediterranean there's plenty of dry weather to come through Friday and into the weekend. Bye-bye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Now, tomorrow will start dry for most of us, but there is more rain to come, and that rain is likely to be heavy in places. We have Met Office warnings in place for the rain. Initially caused by this weather front, it's been only slowly tracking its way across the country through the day today. Very wet still over Wales and southwest England, but it is turning drier here through this evening. That rain working into eastern parts of England, where it should also tend to fizzle through the early hours. Showers continue to pack in across much of western Scotland, but as I said, many places will become dry by the time we get to dawn as temperatures drop down into single figures, but generally that's still pretty mild for this time of year. So a largely dry, largely cloudy start. Should see some sunny spells across parts of Scotland in the morning. Quite grey though in the south, but the overnight rain may still be lingering across parts of Kent, and it won't be long before the next batch of rain arrives. For Northern Ireland, much of Northern England, good part of Scotland, it's a dry, fine, bright start. There will be some showers just moving in across the northwest of Scotland. And then as we go through the day, the winds will strengthen and the next area of rain will arrive. Coming into the southwest of England, initially spreading right across the south of England, then into Wales. Brighter colours where we're seeing heavier rain, likely to cause further disruption. It's been very wet, of course, recently, so this extra rain may cause further flooding, certainly disruption on the transport network. A lot of spray, surface water on the roads. It all moves northward, so most places soggy by the end of the day. The exception may be northern Scotland. Also very gusty and blustery times through tomorrow in the southwest. A bright breezy day though for Friday, something of a respite. Many places seeing sunny spells across England and Wales. A lot drier here. Still a fair few showers across northern Scotland and northern parts of Northern Ireland. But overall Friday is a drier day. But do look out for the heavy rain tonight and again tomorrow. Those Met Office yellow warnings are on the Met Office website.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
My view is very straightforward. I don't think people who come here as foreign nationals, as migrants, should be entitled to benefits. You wouldn't be in most countries in the world, but for some reason we've gone incredibly soft over the course of the last 20 or 30 years on this issue. And I find it absolutely astonishing that 500 migrants a day are signing on for benefits in our country. What is even more astonishing is the number of them that are actually breaking all the rules. Rob Bates, Research Director at the Centre for Migration Control, has done a study on this. So the numbers signing up are simply staggering. And was it 1 in 6 on universal credit?
1 in 3 on universal credit have indefinitely to remain. So 1/3 of people with indefinitely to remain status are claiming universal credit. So effectively, that big pool of people that are coming across and we're waiting to come into the universal credit system on the Boris wave, 1 in 3 are likely to become a sort of burden on the state.
So 1 in 3 of those that came in, and 1 in 6 now of the overall number universal credit. But you've discovered that there's mass rule breaking going on. Explain.
Yeah, I think this is quite astonishing. So if you're coming into the country, you shouldn't be obviously eligible for benefits, but if you are being given out-of-work benefits, you're required to meet a pretty modest set of fulfilments. You're meant to sort of show that you're improving your presentation, you're meant to show that you're sort of getting ready to actually enter the workplace. And what we've uncovered at the Centre for Migration Control is that 200 migrants a day are falling foul of these rules and being issued with what is called an adverse sanction, where they've not even, in many cases, bothered to turn up to a sort of a bi-monthly meeting or to demonstrate to a DWP caseworker that they're actually trying to get back into the workplace. And I think this really shows actually that where this country is heading with the mass migration that we've seen is something that is not adding any value, and actually what we're doing is just extending benefits to individuals who have no intention to actually make an economic contribution.
So if 200 a day are in breach of the rules, do they have the benefits removed?
They have it temporarily removed, and what I would say is that if they're not able to fulfil the basic requirements, that's a pretty good casus belli to say to them, no, we're removing it, you're not ever going to have the right to claim universal credit in this country again. And I think actually that's something that the Labour government should be considering. I don't think they'll go anywhere near prohibiting foreign nationals from claiming universal credit. I think that goes against everything they stand for. But
if Rob is right,
sure,
right, and they've studied this, these boys, if 1 in 3 that gets indefinite leave to remain goes on universal credit, we won't be looking at 500 a day. We'll be looking at tens of thousands every single month as a direct result of what happened during Boris's premiership.
Look, so I think...
It's true, isn't it?
We don't talk about this enough. There is a direct link between the benefit system and the immigration. There's no doubt in my mind that people are attracted to come here for precisely this reason. They can see that they can come here and essentially live off the British taxpayer.
And bring dependents.
All of that. And so in a way, if you deal with this, I think you'll kill two birds with one stone, if I can use that metaphor. You're essentially going to be reducing the payments, the cost, and also discouraging people from coming. And you're quite right. If you look across the world, a lot of benefits have got stringent conditions on them. So you've got to be either a national, in most instances, or someone who is committed to the country. So if you've worked for 10 years and you're unemployed for whatever reason, and you've contributed something, and you could argue that they should have benefits. But the idea that people are coming here, often not even speaking the language,
and this is very
with no intention to integrate.
This is very interesting. Now, we talked about John Shabama Mahmood a moment ago and Tough Talk. Just quickly, she's talked about ILR. Will she prevent those who are part of the Boris way from getting ILR, or is this a policy for years to come?
So they've said it will apply to those that are already here prior to a consultation taking place, which frankly is already looking like it's being hijacked by sort of left-wing activists, sort of lobbying them to effectively keep the current rules in place. And there are so many loopholes in actually the plans put forward by the Home Secretary that this idea that they're considerably elongating the period that it takes an individual to get ILR won't really apply to actually a large percentage of the cases. And, this is a situation that is getting out of control. It's been 28 billion we've spent on foreign nationals and welfare since 2022. And this is, as you said, before the Boris wave even signs on, which is going to be a huge problem.
John, I just think about, your former constituents who got up in the morning, went to work.
Very often 3 jobs.
To get by.
Yeah.
Bringing up families or whatever they're doing. We're just being walked all over.
Well, there's, these figures are staggering, I'll just say that. I would say a couple of things. One of the levers for this is the fact that we had for 15, 16, 17 years the most sluggish wage growth in probably 150 years, 200 years, something like that. And that meant that a lot of people who were working, and they were also getting benefits in work benefits. They were often the people I'm talking about doing 2-3 jobs, and I'm talking households where both parents were doing 2-3 jobs. Because I met them. The other thing is, you mentioned the sanctions. You can imagine I had a big caseload involving benefits, and what I came across were people who might turn up a few minutes late to an interview and would be sanctioned. I mean, either the regime has got much looser, which I find difficult to imagine, or something else has happened. Or maybe it has.
You think
something is happening on a massive scale.
But I don't think anything's going to happen, because if you look at where the politics are, the dynamics, there is no way. Shabana Mahmood's profile, her level, her rating within the party has plummeted. As soon as she got into the Home Office and started talking tough on immigration, the Labour Party aren't with her on this.
She's lost support within Labour voters, or Labour activists.
Within the Labour activists. And I think it'll be very difficult for either her or the Prime Minister really to get any movement on this, because you've got a left-wing base, and you know more about this than I do, John. Who will be very reluctant to tighten
well, Rob, all I can say
screws
is
on it.
You come in here every few weeks with figures that we don't like the figures, but they're put in good round numbers we can understand, so thank you for that. What the Farage moment for today, well, how about this? Public sector pay last year rose at 7.6%, yet private sector pay rose at 3.9%. And yet at the same time, the number of sick days went up by 5%, and 50% of those for people with mental health issues. Kwasi,
sure.
You think this is what Labour were elected to do?
Well, look, they came in, you remember, they came in July last year. It's only 18 months. And one of the first things they did was to increase public sector pay. And people like me were saying, well, why are you doing this? And they said, well, under the evil Tories, we lost all these days in strikes. So what we're going to do is we're going to give the public sector good wage increases, and that will stop the strikes. And then today we hear that the resident doctors, we used to call them junior doctors, are now striking. So that hasn't prevented strikes. All it's done.
Give a bit and they always want to take more.
Absolutely.
John, he's got a point, doesn't he? I mean, these are Labour voters.
Not really.
Of course he has. You know it. Come on.
The numbers of days lost in strike action is down. I mean, I know that the resident doctors have been in the news, and there's been very strong work. It's down over the past 2 or 3 years.
I'm talking here about pay increases and more absenteeism from work, let alone work from home.
Yeah, I mean, work from home, I think, has been a bit of a menace. And that goes back to the to the lockdowns, and people have not got back into. And by the way, I don't understand this because I couldn't wait to get back to work after lockdown. You know, I was dying to get back to work. But the long-term figures for days lost in industrial action is starting to come down. With the absenteeism, I don't know what's going on with that. I mean, I'd have to drill down into the figures and see.
So, I mean, we can nitpick about the figures, but I don't think that the public sector deals that they did were very generous deals as soon as they came in. And, of course, they had to increase they took away the winter fuel payment to pay for all of that.
And the problem is, if you look weak, they're always going to come back for more. In a moment, we're going to talk Grangemouth. We're going to talk energy policy. We're going to talk a total lack, it seems to me, of industrial policy that we're now going to make up with by using your money to subsidise Grangemouth, having made it unprofitable to begin with.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
As I've tried to warn for years, we are deindustrialising at a rapid pace, appearing to be happy that petrochemicals, amongst other industries, go to other parts of the world. And what we've done, of course, is we've made it very difficult. Us and the European Union have made it very difficult for these industries with carbon taxes and, of course, very expensive energy. And so we come to Grangemouth, the last really big manufacturing plant in the whole of Scotland, and it's on the verge of closure because it's losing money because of government policy. But now we're going to throw £120 million of subsidy at it, which should keep it going for a further 5 years. But are we just putting a bit of sticking plaster over a massive problem? Do we need to think more radically about having an industrial policy? I'm joined down the line by Tom Crotty, Group Director of INEOS, and of course, you know, Grangemouth, much of that place is your baby. Tom, you must be pleased short-term with the money, I guess.
Yeah, good evening, Nigel. Yes, definitely. I mean, in the short term, it's a great relief. What you've said in the build-up to this is absolutely right. I mean, we've been suffering from not a recent problem, but a long-term problem, particularly around energy policy and a lack of industrial policy. And the struggles we're having at Grangemouth, where we have been losing a lot of money over a long period of time. We put 400 million into the site just in the last 5 years. That has to be remedied because we can't keep doing it. And that's what this is about today.
But what today's about is giving you the money to stay open for a few more years and to keep 500 men and women in work. And that will be, in that part of Scotland, of course, very, very welcome. But none of it actually solves the problem, does it? I mean,
no, it's a sticking plaster. You're right. It's a sticking plaster. But the problem we have is if we don't do something about it now, we won't be here in 5 years' time or 3 years' time or even 1 year's time. And if we're not there, then we can't get benefit from the recovery, which will come. Because what we're looking at here is a global problem. It's not just a UK problem, it's massively a European problem because, as you've rightly said, we've got carbon taxation, we've got high energy prices. We're not seeing any support from the EU level to sort this out. And in fairness to the UK government, at least they're doing something. And we've also had support from the French government for our French sites. So we've got two governments in Europe who've at least woken up to the threat. But we're getting nothing from Brussels on this.
No, interesting, isn't it? Even the French, just ignoring Brussels and doing their own thing. And Tom, it's true. I mean, just explain to our viewers and listeners just how uncompetitive we are in terms of energy pricing compared to, say, China, America, or other competitors.
So the short answer, Nigel, is we are massively uncompetitive. We are paying 4 times the price for our gas as the Americans. We're paying virtually 4 times the price for our electricity as the Americans. The same applies with the Middle East, another major competitor, and the same applies with China. And the worst part with that is if you look at China, the reason that China is doing very well is all that Russian gas that used to come into Europe is now going to China and comes back into us as imported products. So this whole thrust to reduce CO2 is failing because all we're doing is replacing product that we used to make in Europe with products now made in China with 3 times the CO2 emissions that we made it with in Europe. And, you know, so we've had a policy which is supposed to reduce CO2, and all it's done is reduce jobs and prosperity. It's deindustrialization to achieve decarbonisation, and that's crazy.
Tom Crotty, you couldn't have put your arguments more clearly. more succinctly or in a more understandable form for our audience. Thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening. John Cryer, this is bonkers.
Well, it's interesting. Tom Crotty said that it's a global problem. I mean, he's right.
Well, a European problem in particular.
He said global.
Well, he said global, then he said European in particular.
Okay, well, he did mention Brussels. I'm more than happy for him to mention Brussels in that context. However, what I was going to say was you need two things to get cheap energy. One is security of supply, the other is diversity of supply. And we haven't had either in this country for a long time. Successive governments haven't really put the investment and the infrastructure in to achieve those two things. I mean, now, well, we'll see what... the problem is there isn't a magic wand. We're going to get small, medium-sized reactors, but that's going to take a few years. Rolls-Royce have the technology, but we haven't got one running. I don't think there's one running anywhere, actually. We've also got GB Energy. They've got a capitalisation of about 8.3 billion quid. That needs to get invested so that we can start bringing down those prices. But to do that, we need the security of supply.
But the more wind farms we build, and the more long-term project wind farms that Ed Miliband sanctions, the more expensive our energy is going to be.
But I would challenge this whole... Because I was Energy Secretary for quite a while, actually,
So,
Minister.
so what did you make of what Tom Crotty said?
So I think what he said made sense to an extent. But you've got to understand, when you're a minister, these people are always going to come up to you for money. I think there are 6 refineries in this country.
He'd rather not have the money. He'd rather have competitive energy prices. But you guys put net zero on him. You guys put carbon. No, you did it.
Don't talk over me. I'll just explain very quickly.
You did you did it.
We did have net zero, but that's 150 million.
Thank you.
The people who run Grangemouth can afford 150 million. They could put their hands in their pockets and put the money in. But they don't do that because they think the government is a soft touch, not just this government, any government.
And
they come in. But you've got to put the onus on the people who are running the refinery. You can't just simply say, when things are difficult, oh, well, Mr. Government, give me money. And of course, any government is tempted to do that because you've got jobs at stake. And I saw this time and time again as Energy Minister. You had people, I won't say who they were taking millions, hundreds of millions in some cases from the business, and then they were coming to government nearly every year, can we have 150 million quid? The 3 years I was in the department, we said no each time.
Well,
and every time they put their hands in their pockets and put the money in.
It's not as if Jim Ratcliffe's group haven't warned us.
It's not as if they don't have any money. They can afford 150 million quid.
They're going to invest billions in America because we're so uncompetitive because of net zero.
But we're still giving them 150 million. So you've accepted the fact. You've accepted the fact that they
we're giving them subsidy to cover up for your government's failure.
No, we're giving them 150 million, which they could well afford themselves.
Do you see my point? We're actually giving them subsidy to cover for what we've done to their business.
Yeah, no, because in the long term we need to have cheap, secure energy. The last time there was really significant investment in our energy infrastructure was the 1950s, 1960s.
Yeah, I agree with that. But that was nuclear. That was the nuclear fleet.
Well, it was both. Yeah, it was
mainly the capital expend was on nuclear.
It was also called because we had a number of super pits were open during that period. Now, what then happened was that we lost. Yeah, it is. We lost. I think it was 3-4 years ago. We lost our biggest storage field for gas. That was
rough. And then we tried to reopen that. But I think what you're saying about the infrastructure, nuclear has been the biggest disaster in Britain because in the 50s and 60s we were the leading civil nuclear power in the world.
We were the best.
And then we were the best.
And now we're the most expensive.
That's right. And the only thing I've ever agreed with Tony Benn on in my life was on the need for nuclear power. And he was very strong on that when he was Energy Minister in the 60s.
He was. He's also a Brexiteer. You'd agree with him on that too. Gentlemen, thank you very much as ever for being on the show. Now, in a moment, coming up is going to be Jacob Rees-Mogg and State of the Nation. And it's good to have you in the studio again, Jacob.
Well, it's much nicer when we're next to each other and we can chat about the cricket as well. But I'm going to be talking about the BBC today and the fact that if you are on welfare, you're going to get your licence fee paid for. So everybody who goes out to work is going to have an extra tax. And it assumes that watching the BBC and watching live television is essential. But I've actually done a little video for YouTube explaining how to avoid paying the licence fee legally, because you don't have to. Watching the BBC live is no longer something people need to do.
As I understand it, Jacob, and you've obviously studied this, they're losing about 500,000 people a year who are no longer paying the licence fee.
That's right. People are dropping off, partly because they don't watch the right things for the licence fee. So if you watch GBNews on YouTube after it's been broadcast, not live, then you don't have to pay a licence fee for that. Interestingly, if you watch on a battery-operated device, not plugged in, you don't have to pay licenses. If you're watching on your mobile, there's a battery device, you don't need a license. If it's plugged in, you need a license. So, I just warn people, as soon as you charge your telephone, stop watching the BBC.
Well, it's clearly going to be vintage Mog after the weather, after the news. 7 o'clock tomorrow night, I'll be with you live with an audience of 1,000 people in Chelmsford. I'm looking forward to it very, very much indeed. It'll be our Christmas special. It'll be a bit more light-hearted than normal. I absolutely promise you. So I hope all of our viewers and listeners join us again then. But first, come on, let's have a look at the all-important weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Evening. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Now, tomorrow will start dry for most of us, but there is more rain to come, and that rain is likely to be heavy in places. We have Met Office warnings in place for the rain. Initially caused by this weather front, it's been only slowly tracking its way across the country through the day today. Very wet still over Wales and southwest England, but it is turning drier here through this evening. That rain working into eastern parts of England, where it should also tend to fizzle through the early hours. Showers continue to pack in across much of western Scotland, but as I said, many places will become dry by the time we get to dawn as temperatures drop down into single figures, but generally that's still pretty mild for this time of year. So a largely dry, largely cloudy start. Should see some sunny spells across parts of Scotland in the morning. Quite grey though in the south, but the overnight rain may still be lingering across parts of Kent, and it won't be long before the next batch of rain arrives. For Northern Ireland, much of Northern England, good part of Scotland, it's a dry, fine, bright start. There will be some showers just moving in across the northwest of Scotland. And then as we go through the day, the winds will strengthen and the next area of rain will arrive. Coming into the southwest of England, initially spreading right across the south of England, then into Wales. Brighter colours where we're seeing heavier rain, likely to cause further disruption. It's been very wet, of course, recently, so this extra rain may cause further flooding, certainly disruption on the transport network. A lot of spray, surface water on the roads. It all moves northward, so most places soggy by the end of the day. The exception may be northern Scotland. Also very gusty and blustery times through tomorrow in the southwest. A bright breezy day though for Friday, something of a respite. Many places seeing sunny spells across England and Wales. A lot drier here. Still a fair few showers across northern Scotland and northern parts of Northern Ireland. But overall Friday is a drier day. But do look out for the heavy rain tonight and again tomorrow. Those Met Office yellow warnings are on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus